Hi, so this is Weldon. Welcome to the Ask Weldon show. I'm broadcasting right now from Korea, where I'm boot camping with Team Solo Mid for our pre-Worlds run. That's coming up in a week or so, 2 weeks I think before group stages. And I just wanted to make a video to talk about coaching tools as we head into Worlds because um, like we're going to the off season, and I've had a chance now to coach pretty much full time, professionally for a full split on top of getting a chance to coach in Korea, seeing the tools that are available on the servers here and stuff like that. And I just wanted to talk about some of the same themes and problems that I'm seeing in my ability and in coaches' ability to have an impact in League of Legends for the last few years, and what I think would be the optimal solution for it, tech solution that would help out both professional level coaching and amateur level coaching. So I'm ranking these in order of kind of importance, but I think that for amateur level, it's actually kind of switched. So I'm going to go professional first, and then if you imagine just the order is ranked backwards, 3, 2, 1 for amateur, I think that that's the appropriate kind of development cycle for that. So if Riot is listening to this, then they want to decide do they want to go pro tools first or scene tools first for the amateur scene, and that would kind of let them prioritize which direction they're developing. So the first and number one thing, of course, is sandbox mode. So the problem with skill training in League of Legends is that it's just like any other motor skill. So we're talking things like shooting or piano playing or playing the trumpet or clarinet or any of these really complex motor coordination activities or sports involve training, essentially neural muscular training, and all of that is either gated by volume or intensity. And you're on one end of the scale. You're either training more intensity and lower volume, or more volume and less intensity. That's just kind of how the mind works, or how the muscle coordination works. And the problem right now in League of Legends is that you can only increase volume by increasing time spent training. You cannot train smarter. So you can't train more often in a 1 hour period. You can only train more hours in order to get more training, because you can't condense the time in between your skill training. So instead of being able to practice a team fight with a composition over and over and over and over and over again, or a spell combo over and over and over again, you have to just play more games. Now, this is artificially suppressing the age of League of Legends athletes, meaning that because you must train 14 hours a day in order to maximize your volume, and you can't train smarter, you can only train more, you can't age very well. So 23-year-olds, 25-year-olds, people who start to have kids and responsibilities and mortgages and paperwork and sleep more, will always lose to 16-year-olds who don't have anything else to do, or 18-year-olds who don't have anything else to do. And you see this already kind of in CSGO, where there's the ability to essentially sandbox mode and drill. And so, and the skill set also is pretty static. I don't think that's really as much of a problem. I don't mind a game where you have to always learn new things, like the League of Legends with the patch changes. I think that it's one kind of athletic life. But anyway, in CSGO, you can essentially drill a certain skill set very efficiently, and so you can train your mechanics a certain amount of hours per day and then be done. In these various training kind of things that have been created, and that allows you to get really quickly up to speed and maintain it there at a high peak. And what you see is CSGO athletes can age very well into 26, 28, some 30-year-olds, whereas essentially in League of Legends you basically cannot both have a child and a spouse and still train League of Legends, because you can only really just train more. You can't train smarter, or you can't train more efficiently. You can only train more lengthily. So if sandbox mode doesn't come along, then we'll just always have athletes who essentially get their first life responsibility and then are done, which I think will kind of suppress quality, in my opinion, because you really only get smarter and more focused as you age, and strategy about games increases as you have more and more life experience. So because reflexes don't really slow down if you can train them, you can essentially imagine that the cap for like reflex slowdown in sort of these kinds of sports that are like small kind of like mechanical movements would be like late 40s or mid 40s. And so like we're essentially keeping like an entire quadrant of like really skilled, strategically intelligent players like out of the ability to have this kind of career. And so the quality of games will be lower if these athletes like can't age up with the sport very well. Okay, number 2, save state. So I think this is kind of like the easiest way to implement a team-wide sandbox mode. So the problem is with sandbox mode, you can imagine there's going to be lots and lots of crafted like little skill drills for various champions and stuff like that, but it'll still be hard to practice strategic things. And the problem is that if you can't practice strategic things regularly, we're going to be stuck with doing scrimmages like forever, which no other sport really just practices only with scrimmages, except for chess, which isn't really a team game. So that doesn't, in my opinion, line up so well. But if you have the ability to save up a bunch of different like game states and replay them from the moment that they're ready, then you can essentially see these as drills. So you can craft like 2 compositions that are agreed upon at a certain time in the game with a certain item set up either behind or ahead, in gold or XP or whatever, and then you can just like play it out for like 3 minutes and rapidly reload it and go again. And this would allow coaches to invent drills and create this market where like essentially like the best and most creative coaches would produce the best and most skilled teams. And then those coaches would be sought after for their creativity and genius, and their teams would be able, and then eventually their methods would become public and spread out, and then like you'd have just better and better training and more effective learning like over and over and over again. So you see this like, for example, in swimming, there's like a coach that comes up with an innovative new drill. He publishes books of swimming drills, and then everybody adopts it, and then like new people discover new things about the body and how to drill it better, and then they publish a new book. And then so like essentially right now, coaches in League of Legends can only really train behavioral change and like strategic principles. But like if you don't know the concepts behind behavioral change, like in a straightforward like system that you can't control, so like in the wide world of like just anything can happen, you can't control the training environment at all. So the only thing you can manipulate is like the learning as it happens in the player. You can't really manipulate their training environment. So first of all, that's a problem because you have a bunch of like 23, 24, 25-year-old coaches who don't know anything about behavior change. So they're just not really coaches at all in League of Legends yet. Some of them are. Some of them are really pushing the boundaries of that and like helping their teams learn and like being kind of like a 6th member, but also a behavioral change coach, like helping them like learn things and point them out. But a lot of times what we see is there's just like an analyst on the team who's like a 6th person who's bouncing ideas around. So it's just like a strategic philosopher or something like that. I don't even know. Like just another person to talk to about strategy on the team. It's not really like coaching in any way. So having some sort of like save state would allow these coaches to start to develop a skill set of coaching and have a playbook of drills that they could then use to define a team's play style. And I think that it would be really interesting because it would allow teams to all in on a certain play style. Like you could, whatever you spent the week drilling, you would be best at. So some teams would spend all of their time drilling team fighting, and some teams would spend all of their time drilling like laning phase up to level 5, and like they would try to make their team playstyle like snowballing off the early game. And other teams would be able to all in on like making their playstyle like fully and fundamentally like about, the 30-minute team fight or something. And it would really give like this cool flavor, I think, to different squads. Because right now that kind of happens. Like there are some teams that like scrim really hard for like the first few minutes and then like kind of just like don't care as much after that if they can't snowball and they just want to like FF and go again. And there are some teams that like will grind to the bitter end of the scrim no matter what, because that's where they think the game is won, is like, kind of like in these late game decision making things. So but we can't really push that because the teams have to like come to this kind of understanding, and then they want to train different things. So there's not this like preset playbook of like drills that can be run either with your like off roster or like another team that's kind of like you. So yeah, I think that would open up like a ton of creativity and ability to differentiate training and allow like teams to really gel around like certain ideas and do them right, and it would layer stuff on in terms of learning. So right now, one of the big problems that I have is that we learn stuff and then we embed it for like 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and then we move on to the next topic, and then like 5 to 10 weeks later, like it's kind of died away, and to refresh it, we have to go back and we have to literally like hit at it scrimmage after scrimmage after scrimmage for like weeks, instead of just running like one day of drills to kind of like refresh every like once in a while. So there's this really like clear cuts like remembering curve that was first discovered by Leitner, where basically the ideal training method is like you train it one day, then the next day, then you wait 3 days, then you wait 7 days, then you wait like 31 days, kind of like that kind of like exponential curve, or logarithmic curve rather. And the problem is that, of course, it like takes, because I want to do concentrated bursts of those drills, and I can't do that without save state. Like it really inhibits like training systems like that. And so instead, we just end up with this cycle where we train something for like 1 week, and then we cycle to the next thing and the next thing. And as a result, my team can only learn like 4 or 5 core principles about the game at a time. And as we layer them up, like it kind of becomes more, we get better fundamentals over and over again. But then the season ends, and we have roster change, and then we can't bring new people into that system like as rapidly without drills as we would like. And so it takes like sometimes an entire year to train that in, and it's just very inefficient. The number 3 thing is training mode. So right now, essentially we do scrimmages in a custom game, right? So here are the problems. If we're on Tournament Realm, which we do in North America, Tournament Realm has lots of spectator slots, which is great. So we can have like position coaches that don't live in the house, so they're cheaper. They can be somewhere else, and they can like spectate the game, and we can have them coaching based on what they see. But there are no replay files or access to data built into the Tournament Realm, so we can't like pull data from it or pull data. And so essentially, like we only get what we can see when we're seeing it. And we have to kind of record it, like not even as a spectator replay, but like as a live VOD, and then like we can't get any data out of that. Like there are people that are trying to program like minimap scrapers that are just like so ineffective in terms of the way that they pull data from the game, that it's like really aggravating when like for basically like very little effort, somebody who has access to the actual code or data stream wouldn't have to like reverse engineer it and could like build that tool straight up into the client. But we don't have access to it when we're scrimmaging. And then if we're scrimmaging on the live client, like we do in Korea, because the ping is so low, then there's only 2 spectator slots per team, which is really beneficial for Korean teams because all their staff is here and they're the coaches, and it really screws over foreign teams because all our staff is in America, and we have 1 spectator slot for all of them. So that's lame. It actually like screwed us a lot because obviously like we have 4 position coaches, and we have to use stuff like Google Drive or Dropbox like to transfer VODs around, which, as you know, can be hacked. And then also there's a 3-minute delay. So like we literally cannot watch like full vision at the same time as the comms are coming through from the team, and it just means that you can't really like, without some weird hacks where you like record from like the audio and then like replay it back with a 3-minute delay in VLC, and then like block out the outside noise of the team scrimmaging and watch it, but then you're like 3 minutes behind when the game ends anyway. So it's like it's really like stupidly weird. And my ideal solution would be like a training mode for essentially for professional teams, where it would just be 5 spectator slots per team, or unlimited, whatever, and it would be live in real time because, like I said, the comms need to be lined up with that so we can see like decision points matched up with communications, matched up with like strategy, and we would have the ability to pull data from the game. And the best data browser would be the ability to see like a timeline of the game with X's on it, for like deaths and objectives, and the ability to set like 2 brackets in that timeline and see within those brackets like XP and gold swings like on a per position basis and on a team-wide basis, and maybe also like a score for ward efficacy per ward. So like this ward saw like 7 people in its life, or this ward saw 0 people in its life, and then you could say like you could track wards over time and be like, oh, this ward here in this position literally has a 0 efficacy score for like 7 games in a row. It never sees anybody, so it's like a useless ward, that kind of thing. Or a ward that we can cut, or we can examine to see like where it could be placed better, those kind of things. So That for me would be like the best training mode for pro use, but I think that there's another training mode that I've seen in other games, like for amateur training, where like league is, let's be honest, like league's getting really complex, and there's going to be more and more people who want to like learn from each other. And the problem is that you can't really do that very well right now within the game. You have to use all these like outside resources, and that's kind of annoying. So what would be nice for an amateur training mode would be the ability to spectate a replay file together. First, I guess we need replay files, but then the ability to spectate them together at the same time would be nice. So that like one person can control what both people are seeing, if you get the drift there. I mean, not that they could both open the same spectator file and go through it independently, but literally one person could control it, and then the other person could also control it. But then they would both see the same thing. That's what I'm talking about. Kind of like a casting, you know? Kind of like you could teach people, like, they could watch, but it'd be live spectated. And then, actually, that's interesting, because then you could like teach whole workshops of people, like, who could all come into your spectator file, and like you can show them stuff. But anyway, the ability to spectate a live game with locked vision on the player, or like locked vision on the team. So what I mean is like you would be able to spectate your pupil, but not in a cheating way. So there'd be no delay. You know, you could talk to them live while they were playing, in which case you would have to limit vision of the map to just like your team's vision, right? Because otherwise people could cheat with it. And I think that even then you would want to have it locked to only normal games, because it would lead to like this fake solo queue unranked where you could like play solo queue but also have a person like watching the whole mini map for you and like coaching you from behind, kind of like we had in CS:GO coaching, where there was like a sixth person on the roster who was just communicating with the team. So yeah, those are the number 1, 2, and 3 things that I think need to happen to kind of revolutionize the ability to improve League of Legends athletes and to kind of unlock the potential that we have in League Esport in terms of artificially suppressing like who can be a league athlete right now. It has to be a young person who has like no other life obligations right now, which is dumb. The only reason that like an 18 or 20-year-old League of Legends athlete would beat out like a 30-year-old League of Legends athlete is because of ability to train in terms of time commitment. Because like there are people with like decades of RTS and MOBA experience who have like way more in terms of like strategy, and the human brain doesn't even finish like maturing physically in terms of like executive functioning until like 27, 28, where like now you can put the full force of your like desire and focus and like ambition towards something. So the kinds of athletes that we would have in these like later age groups would be incredibly dominant if there was a way for them to train like more intelligently and kind of with more full focus as they aged up. Because it's always the case in like traditional sport that like the teenage athletes and the 20-something athletes in college just have more time to train than the mature athletes, but the mature athletes keep up because they can bring more to the table when they do train. And they have like more like base layers of skill. Like, for example, Phelps did not win any medals in London based on his training in the 4 years leading up to London. In fact, he was training less than other athletes that he beat leading up to London, in terms of like pure yardage per week, but he won off of the like 100,000 kilometers that he'd swum for the previous 2 Olympics, for like Athens and for Beijing, and kind of like maintained that in a very smart and effective way. And that is what could be possible in League of Legends if we get that kind of thing. And the number 2 thing being like save state, so that we can actually have a coaching world where there's like, a marketplace for like creative ideas and coaches who are like not just behavioral change experts, or like random like 6th person analysts or whatever, but actually can like create drills and coach teams. And then third, a training mode that would just allow more security. Like, it's kind of silly that like our security related to like our pro coaching has to go outside of Riot servers. Like, I don't want to deal with like Dropbox and Google Drive security and all these other like random like video tools security and like audio tool security. Okay, it's not really a big problem because we have like 2-factor authentication capabilities now, but like I can't force that necessarily unless I buy really expensive tools. And while that's fine, I still think that like it would be more leveling in a way to just have it all built into the client, because then like Riot would be able to control it, and they could just say like this is what teams have access to for training, like kind of period, instead of this weird system where like Korea trains differently and they have replay files, and America trains differently and we have more spectators, but then we don't get replay files, and like Korea can like throw their replay files through the data engines, but like they can't put them up publicly on the web because like then other people will get them, and we don't even have replay files in the US to throw through data engines. But then like we can have more people like in the game, like kind of pulling stuff out for like the moment to moment thing. So like yeah, it's just really weird, like kind of like unlevel playing field, and also inefficient or ineffective in both cases at doing what would be needed, which is the ability to pull data from the game live so that we can coach in the time afterwards, and the ability to have like as many spectators as we want with no delay, which I think is pretty simple. So yeah, I just wanted to share those ideas and wish us luck on our Worlds run this year. Follow me on Snapchat at MindGamesWeldon if you want to keep up with it. I haven't been doing it a lot because I've been in Korea right now and we're like grinding it out. But like as we get on the road and like things are more uncertain and we have a lot more time, like as we're going to and fro things, I'll be updating everybody on my Snapchat story, just like how things are going in the back end. So yeah, peace out.